Lots of people pay attention to the Cybersecurity Framework from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST came out with a major update recently, the first since 2018. Joining me with one analysis of what's changed, attorney Lance Taubin, senior associate on the cyber and data team at Alston and Bird. Mr. Taubin, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate you having me.
And you've been following NIST and the standards and advising people for some time now on cyber issues. Just briefly, what is the framework all about and what is new in the latest version?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. So the framework is really a holistic standard that previously was geared towards critical infrastructure organizations, but now has changed. And one of the key changes is to more broadly apply to all organizations. And it's a framework to help organizations build out their cybersecurity programs. And they've used 5 core functions previously, and that have added a 6th. But the 5 core functions were identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And now they've added a 6th core function, govern, which is one of the major changes, which we can go into. But essentially, the cybersecurity framework is truly a holistic standard that organizations can use to implement a cybersecurity program.
Right. And to have an actual cybersecurity program, you need to refer to other NIST documents, such as special publications, 800 series. But this is kind of the framework under which all of those operate.
That's precisely right, Tom. There are a number of different standards and special publications that they've issued. NIST 853 for federal contractors, 800-171, risk assessments 830. So there's many others.
All right. So now the new framework is out. What do people need to know? You mentioned the addition of, obviously, you want to detect and mitigate cybersecurity attacks. It sounds like governance is what they're adding.
Governance is a huge addition here, and it actually is very much in line with how other regulators and kind of the general zeitgeist has felt about cybersecurity now. The addition really emphasizes the importance of cybersecurity as one core component of an organization's broader enterprise risk management strategy. So it's not executives, C-suite board members should not just be, considering financials and reputation and intellectual property to all other categories as key enterprise risks, but now also should be considering cybersecurity. The governance function encompasses roles and responsibilities, duties, the authority, policy oversight, and kind of just a broad understanding of context within the organizational risk management.
And to add then this idea of risk management to the higher levels of an organization, that seems to maybe indicate that the importance and the risk and the severity of what's happening in cybersecurity has gotten worse. It's not just an annoyance so much anymore as a real cost.
Right. That's right. And I'm sure, you and your listeners will, be sifting through the radio and the news every day and see a new incident. Data breach, cybersecurity incident at a whole host of different types of companies, and it is a very real escalating risk. The threat landscape is evolving, and the threat actors and criminals seem to be just 1 or 2 steps ahead of us, and it is truly an enterprise risk.
We're speaking with attorney Lance Taubin of Alston and Bird, and you also mentioned that there seems to be a mechanism across government for this idea of governance and high-level attention to cyber because of the SEC's new cybersecurity disclosure rule, and we're seeing that disclosure rule idea pop up all over the place. And so this is of a piece, you might say.
That's right. So I think between the SEC's new cybersecurity disclosure rule, which does emphasize and stresses the increased involvement of executives and or directors in cybersecurity, both for disclosing material cybersecurity incidents under, via Form 8K or the organization's quarterly 10K disclosures, which, in fact, literally hot off the press yesterday, the SEC issued a statement about 8Ks. And I won't get into that, but another interesting statement about issuing disclosures about cybersecurity incidents under item 105 or item 801, adding some clarity. But not just the SEC. We've seen the New York Department of Financial Services issue a recent amendment to their cybersecurity regulation. NYDFS is really a leading regulator that in the cyberspace that many other regulators, both on the state side and federal side, have seemed to follow. And in that amendment, they've also highlighted and stressed the importance of escalating cybersecurity to the senior management and the board level.
And do you sense that this requirement or this recommendation for governing cyber will make its way into federal contracting requirements? Because there are similar types of things making their way into contracts.
I do. It's only a matter of time before these requirements make their way into federal contracts. It will be interesting, though, to see to what extent and how granular and how detailed those requirements will be. So I think the devil's in the details, and the jury's still out on that one.
In the meantime, then, whether it's a requirement in contracts or not, if it's good policy, if it's a good practice to have that kind of governance, what do companies need to do differently, contractors? Because it's already a requirement for federal agencies to consider this at the highest levels.
That's right. So I think the difference really comes into making sure that they are regularly reviewing the cybersecurity program through risk assessments, their cybersecurity policies, making sure that they are up to date on the evolving threat landscape and the new cyber risks, because those are truly changing on a daily basis. This is no longer just information security specific or an information technology specific issue. This is an enterprise issue that everyone across the enterprise, whether it's HR, and I believe there's a specific subcategory within the new framework for HR, very specifically focusing and prioritizing cybersecurity. So it's really not just for technical folks. It is a enterprise-wide focus. And then, of course, that has to go, to the top levels of management to ensure that they are setting the priorities and setting the agenda of where they want to take the cybersecurity program, and ensure that all cybersecurity risks, cybersecurity program is, in fact, they're up to date on those issues. And I think one really important aspect is there's a statement within the new framework about allocating necessary resources for cybersecurity. Organizations should not take that lightly, understanding this is a cost and it's not generally considered a revenue driver, although it can be considered a revenue driver. But I do think that's an important aspect, obviously, which, gets to the higher, board and senior management levels.
And somehow this seems to relate also to the supply chain issue, since people are so tightly tied in with their suppliers, at least their primary suppliers, that am I seeing a link here that doesn't exist, or could that be part of the ecosystem that's developing?
I think that's right, Tom. So the focus on the supply chain risk management and security is definitely an enhancement and a change in this framework. The technology relies on a complex, globally distributed, interconnected ecosystem of vendors and across so many different levels of outsourcing that it would be foolish to ignore these supply chain risks. And, it is truly just, I think the framework really wants the organizations to have an increased focus on this. I mean, we saw this last year, which is, there's still some lingering issues and litigation going on, but with the Move It transfer security incident where, thousands of organizations and millions of individuals were impacted by a, secure file transfer application that was provided to many different organizations, and then they had third parties that they were providing it to, so it was a downstream effect.
All right, well, we'll have to keep an eye on this one too now. Attorney Lance Taubin of Alston and Bird, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it.
We'll post this interview along with a link to his article at federalnewsnetwork.com/Federal Drive. Subscribe to the Federal Drive wherever you get your podcasts.